part of the writing process that I was kind of going over with you is, it's been a collection of haikus that have kind of like turned into like sets of like pieces of jokes that have worked. And it's funny, like about a week ago, I actually printed out all of my stuff that I used to do, and just reading some of it out loud was very basic, but it almost comes in the form of a simple poem. One of my opening jokes is, guys, just simple as, guys, I'm Cuban. Thank you. It's not a poem.
Welcome to the 1 Week Critique of the Week. I'm al-Sirgany, and today we're talking about the joke writing process with comedian Gabe Dorado.
Yay.
So Gabe, like we talked about, what we usually do in these interviews is we look at a poem or a short story piece, and we look at how it goes from like its earliest version to its final version, the way it would be in a book. And I'm really interested in the way the writing process works for performance arts, like comedy, and you have an extremely elaborate way of writing jokes, which is interesting because I think most people think
Four-dimensional, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
People that look at my notebook like can't understand my process. I'm Cuban, so I'm probably gonna bust the tables after my set. We're very good at cleaning. Black guys, white guys wear sports jerseys. Latinos, we wear restaurant t-shirts. Think about it, like my flag football team in college was the Chipotle Warriors. All Hispanic. Made food for both teams, whether we won or lost. That's three separate jokes that I turned into like almost a piece now, because it's stuff that, following my weekly writing exercises, I was like, that kind of worked. That I can add that to that piece, and it just slowly started coming. So what I've been doing now is kind of regaining that structure of a set. I kind of struggled on Saturday with, I felt no fluidity in my set. Jokes that worked, but it almost felt like I was reaching and forcing jokes because I couldn't find the actual like structure, which is why you have to keep practicing and doing these over and over again. Even I used to go to open mics when poets would recite. You could tell they practiced because they went there dry, not saying their poem sucked because they didn't practice it. But they actually worded it out and found the timing in their own writing. They delivered. It's the same thing. So crazy. Now, like the jokes that actually been my favorite to do, and this is I still have the trust of knowing that a joke works, and knowing that you have to fill up a certain amount of time. You tend to start filling in filler, thinking that that'll buy enough time, but what it does is kind of kill the energy of the joke, and that's my relearning curve now of doing the shows again, is say the joke that works and move on, and then go to the next one, and then worry about it later if you're out of stuff, but at least you keep the energy going of and laughing. So for example, like coronavirus jokes, I tried to go too much into like why I'm exhausted and why this has been a tiring pandemic with all the things in life that are happening. One of them that I probably shouldn't even write into a joke anymore is that I was like everybody was terrified the first 2 months. Like people that are like it's a word I almost said homophobic. It's when you're hypochondriac. People are hypochondriacs and people have panic attacks. I get it, dude. Like I had a headache for like a month and a half. I think everybody has a similar process. I just think this is the way mine kind of thinks, like a computer file, like a cheap computer file.
So can you tell us a little bit about your process? I think most people think that when a comedian gets up, they are just rambling about whatever happened to them at a bar last night.
I think I do a weekly podcast, and I ask the same question every week: how do you write a joke? Because it's never the same answer. And some people are naturally that gifted in that they can actually just say like, oh, this is what happened to me last night. Yeah. And it's funny. But when a consistent thing that happens is when you don't write it down in its tightest like version, it becomes a loose story, can we say, unless you naturally like edit yourself. Some people are so good at editing while they're speaking, and it's just public speaking like one-on-one, that they can narrow down like a riff. But it's, for example, like I saw an interview about Bill Burr the other day. Bill Burr said his first 7-8 years doing comedy, all he did was one-liners. And what he didn't realize what he was doing is his subconscious was learning set up punchline. And what we were talking about before is every kind of joke has an entropy, a life in it, and like almost like theatrical, has got a beginning, middle, and an end, because that's, as human beings, we're genetically programmed to wait for the punchline, and that's like, I don't think we know why, but we all laugh at the same things, and maybe some people have a little bit more subjective than others, but laughter is extremely universal, and that comes from shock and awe, I guess. Yeah. And for me, I basically, when I first started getting into stand-up, you try to emulate your favorites and like what's their structure and how they write. But at the end of the day, it's funny. Like I remember this is like probably 12 years ago. When I was already doing improv and sketch, and I was thinking about doing stand-up. And people like, don't ever take a class. And these are people that have been doing it forever. Like, you waste your money. And I understand the concept of you won't learn stand-up in a class. Your teacher is your audience. But joke writing, you can actually learn basics. It's like taking any kind of writing class. You basically learn the fundamentals of what are the most effective jokes, or the ones that you care about. They come from a personal experience or a personal observation that you actually felt strongly towards, and then you somehow found the funny. And it's like it's like alchemy, because some people can find it right away. Some people, it takes like 6 months to find the punchline of a joke, but because they like that premise so much, they won't give up on it. Yeah. And like, they'll keep it there, and it'll just be there. And they go, like, you keep looking on the wall every day, like something's gonna happen. Yeah. But then like you have a life experience that adds that third piece of joke. Like, man, that's all that needed to happen, like a life moment. Yeah. So some people naturally do that, but then at the same time, like, there are fundamentals of joke writing that can actually enhance and maybe even like speed up your process of finding a joke faster. And that's just dissect, like basic writing. Like what I do now is and this is a combination of stuff that I've learned throughout the way. Like when I first started writing sketches, just coming up with a premise was a simple equation: C equals T plus P, which is comedy equals truth plus pain. And almost every funny experience, any funny joke, funny story comes from a truthful thing that happened that was painful to a group that can relate to it. A basic universal thing is being in a relationship is tough. That's already funny, because a lot of people can relate that relationships are tough. And I don't have to say anything else about it because I'm in a relationship, so you want to keep it going. Like that's the true angle of it. But that was when I first started doing stand-up. Like that would be like my jump-off point. Because when I started realizing, and you said this before, is you had some teachers that would make you kind of like riff or go off. Yeah. One of my favorite teachers that I had in sketch and improv was a lady that she would make you like, you would write something, you'd write a page monologue, and then she would like, don't like put it on the floor. And if you have to go to it, but like see what you can come up with, because a lot of times you come up with better stuff, and that's the whole beautiful part of improv. When you apply improv to stand-up, it's riffing. It's basically your act out, which is, it took me a long time to realize what an act out actually is making your comic premise come to life. Like if an actor has a script, making that real on stage or on film. And the act out is just a repetition of you saying the same joke, and now you're trying to find moments of it that you can actually physically be there and let the audience be there with the joke. I wrote this like 2 weeks ago. Like it sucks that I can't do race jokes anymore because that's my whole act. It's really not. That's one liner that I wrote. But I'm Cuban. So a lot of my base comes from me growing up in a Cuban culture, living in Miami, going away from that into a predominantly white culture, and me being Mexican. Like just this life, I guess, this nature. Saying that, going back to the writing, it keeps going back to the writing because now I've given myself another part of the writing process, and this is when COVID happened. It was March. I knew I was going to perform stand-up in a long time, and I had a pretty good discipline already when it came to getting ready for the week. But I guess if I would critique myself, I wasn't really trying to prepare brand new material every week. If it naturally came to me, I would write it down. But I wasn't like actually going up, like reading. You have to read the news. You have to know what's going on. Like that's like topical stuff is a double-edged sword because everybody knows what topical stuff is going on. At the same time, topical stuff doesn't last that long. So which is why you have to just constantly be aware of what's going on, so that you don't get old and you don't get stale. Because even jokes that are your number one hitting jokes, something might happen in the news tomorrow, and now you can't say that joke because it's not acceptable, and you'll get tabooed for it. So that's part of the process. Is maybe some of your best jokes have to like retire for a couple of years and you put them on a shelf life because you can't say it. And then maybe like 2 years later, like something positive happens that you're allowed to say that joke again. And that's the thing I keep saying, like the joke writing process. This is all subjective things that happen after you write a joke, but I think you can still write any topic into a joke because there's people that get paid to write jokes, people that write jokes for Conan, for Jimmy Fallon, Kimmel. They have to constantly put themselves through a writing filtering blender of topic. What's a topic about? How does it make you feel? You answer that question in a very basic form. It makes me feel scared, it makes me feel angry, it makes me feel nervous, curious. And then then you have to answer that. Why does it? Your point of view comes in the answer. You answer the question. Why does it make you scared? Because of I believe this, and this is my strong opinion on this. And that's all the joke premise is. It's an angle. It doesn't have to be the best angle. It just has to be funny. Like you're not trying to gain like votes in an election and just trying to make people laugh. And I just think that's another argument with jokes down the road is what can you joke about? What's acceptable? I think you have to have just good taste in life to know what you can and cannot say. Like some things are insulting, some things are funny. I can go back and forth. That usually is part of my last process of whether I'll try the joke out or not. Like I'll answer those questions. I'll try to maybe see if it's related to like an analogy or something. Like, is it like something? But then after I have all that, then is when I start the free writing process of, before I make it to the stage, it's got to survive like one trial of writing. That I'll write it out loud, like I'll write it out and I'll say it out loud. And that's when I'm talking like that wide sentence for me to writing like a haiku, is because a lot of my jokes aren't me elaborating and spitting out a million miles an hour in a direction. Like I tend to talk fast, like you can hear me, I'm talking fast right now. I think a way of me slowing myself down is knowing that the jokes work in just 4 words, and it makes me slow down. And that's where I start finding the pattern of the funny, the moment of the joke, like the punchline. And it's funny, sometimes people laugh at the first line, which is the premise, just because of the way you deliver something. And it's all a matter of what you put more emphasis on. Sometimes hearing comics a lot of times, they'll get mad at somebody laughing at their first line and not laugh at the punchline. Like they still laughed. Like maybe they didn't laugh at the part you wanted to laugh, but that's the beauty of the writing is you can say a poem differently every day. You can say it's a joke differently every day, and it'll get a different laugh. It'll get a different reaction wherever you say it. So that's now like the next part of my writing process was I would write all this down, and then when I have it as a list, then I would start seeing how it sounded out loud. I'll tape it one time, even before it gets up here, I'll tape it one time and take notes on it. And like, oh, that sucks. That's not really funny. That's just like I'm just upset at something.
Yeah.
So like, what's the point of saying? Like, it's not like it's an idea that it could possibly work down the road. But I know right now if I sit that in front of the stage or on a Zoom show or live, and be like,
Yeah.
why did he say that?
Yeah. And you were telling me about, well, two things I'm interested in. One is sort of like how you go through sort of like books and what you call the AAA. But also I'm interested in your concept. You were telling me before we started talking the other day about admiring comics who in particular are able to intentionally lose an audience and bring it back, which I think is an art form that like...
That's when you know you've mastered it completely.
Yeah, I think that doesn't happen as much in other literary forms.
No.
Because it takes so much time to read a 1,000-page novel, no one's looking to piss off their audience immediately.
I mean, the only one I can think of that's not comedy is George R. R. Martin.
Yeah. Okay.
He's almost upsetting, and he's brilliant. But I saw an interview of him, and like hearing his reasoning behind it was like, all right, that's why you do it. Like, I get it.
Okay.
He basically read Game of Thrones. No, he read Lord of the Rings, and he said when they killed Gandalf, he cried like a baby, and like it was like heartbroken. And because of that, he realized like whenever he wrote a story, no character was going to be safe. And it was all about raising the stakes. Is once they killed Gandalf, anybody could die. So now you're scared. Or like now you're actually like you're focused.
Yeah.
So that, I mean that's his writing technique. Of there's an old joke that I used to do like it was my go-to top 3 jokes, and I do a lot of jokes about men being creepy. And with the hashtag problem, it's not good. Like, for example, like, I'm glad I have a girlfriend because it's tough. It's tough being, guys are like pit bulls now. Like, we can't look at anybody weird or we get put down. Get a hashtag, fucking me. There's only a few guys that are been successful their whole life. And it's the one guy I look up to, which is Enrique Iglesias. Because dude, in this world, you listen to Enrique Iglesias' lyrics, he survived this fucking hashtag problem, and he's the fucking creepiest guy ever. All his lyrics, he gets away with it. Okay, you can run, you can hide, but you can't escape my love. Ew. That's a stalker, man. And he keeps going, you can run. But he's like, being a straight guy is tough now because like, I've been thinking about this a lot, man. Wearing a mask is difficult. And I think it's a learning curve. Like people that have been wearing masks forever are gonna have a better chance now when I'm talking like to women for like straight guys, like ninjas, Middle Easterners. Dude, they've been doing it for years. Like you're laughing because wearing a mask has been difficult for you when it comes to having eye contact with people. Which is why I think Enrique Iglesias won't have a problem. He's one of like him and ninjas would be like. But the mask has been tough. Hello. Quarantine has been tough. One of my favorite jokes I've been saying lately is that I can't wait to get put back on lockdown. Because I'm tired of seeing certain people already. And you know the people that I'm talking about is the people that want to give you hugs. And it's the people that you wouldn't have hugged in 2019. Like, dude, give you a hug. Like, dude, I would have never hugged you in February. Like, please, 6 feet. Put your fucking mask on. Keeping you going, but not in a nice way. Right?
But, so you've got multiple books going on, which we talked about a little earlier. This is your little black book of early jokes.
So this is everything that I collect during the week.
Okay.
Like this is actually the only true thing that happened to me, and the other stuff I came from the newspaper. But I feel bad reading this out because it's you know the Citibank like care meals.
Yeah.
Like I've been reading papers that they found like 20,000 like who would throw away that food, but then like our super. And I was just me being nice. I said yes to it. I didn't want it. But I ended up like fish, and I'm like, I wanted him to fish our fish foster, so I was hoping him to come up. He brought us to City Field Foods, and one was like, it was like tilapia. And this is me trying to be like joking or like, dude, like, is this too good for me? Like I'm not poor. Like I was being really hard on myself. So I was trying to eat it in front of my brother and my girlfriend, and they're like, dude, you're making me nauseous. Because I was attempting to eat it, but I was gonna. And it didn't taste bad, but just my psychology is like, dude, no, it's like a. But I was even trying to psych myself like, dude, if you were in prison, you would eat this. Like, eat it. And that's something I felt so strongly about. Like, you know what? It's just one sentence right now, and I'm gonna go through the whole problem. I'm gonna answer all the questions.
Yeah.
How did it make me feel? Blah blah blah. But that's basically my ground zero approach of every idea. Even an old joke that I did a long time ago. Like maybe I found like a funny tag that I'll write that down and dissect it, and then once it has some sort of like form, I'll see if I can attach it to that piece. But then that like so this is my weekly writing assignment. This notebook that if it's funny, it makes it into this one.
Okay.
And then whatever this is my main this is my bread and butter. I write even just normal for myself. I write 3 pages every day just to kind of get myself going. And then I created. I already had a file called my post-COVID special. My HBO special. And people don't realize it's like everybody's first hour that you see like on Comedy Central or YouTube or whatnot. That's everything that person has done until that moment. Like good, like an hour of them killing of material that they actually wrote down, or that they were geniuses. They remembered everything. But it definitely came from a repetition. They did that joke 3 times on the Tonight Show. They did it 1 time at the Comedy Center. They did it 5 times on tour. They made it part of that hour. And then they got good at doing that hour. So my goal for a long time was I wanted to have an hour special. Like that's every comedian's goal. But for me to make it into fruition, I created a file called my HBO special. That's all I would refer to. That's all that I would pick out during the week. And I would do like 15 shows a week that I would basically dissect a 45-minute set, and like I would work on it in the city compared to going on the road, or unless you're a headliner, you don't really get to do that much time. So I would pick 10 to 15 minutes at a time and just work on that. And then anything brand new that I would, either topical or was part of the same premise, would make it there. But then that's because I knew I wasn't going to do those jokes in a while. A lot of them were going to feel stale to me because coronavirus happened in March. I kept that file on the side, and I didn't delete or anything. I kept it exactly what it was, and I already had like a blueprint of all those jokes, kind of just like organized. I created a file called my post-COVID special, and then I created another one like a week later called the AAA. And that's what we were laughing about. The whole purpose of that joke was of that file was any joke or any premise or any idea that I think might have some sort of chance down the road, I'll send it there. And because not ready to say AAA is not ready for a swing. So I basically, like, once something happens in your career that gets you good enough going, like I'll try you out. You get inspired. That's the beauty of jokes. That's when you have your best senses, when you actually say stuff that you want to say. That's what it comes down to. Like, you can have 100 ideas that you wrote down on a list, and you all are pretty funny, basic ideas. But if you go down that, according to the way your life is at that moment or society, 5 of those are going to matter to you, and those are the ones you're going to want to say the most. And that's when you have to start finding that trust. And a big part of the stand-up process with the joke writing is the confidence of a joke. And I talk about this a lot with comedians. I think the ego can be a negative or a positive thing. The ego's a muscle. It just depends on how you work it out. If you learn for what the ego can do to you in a good way, it can give you confidence speaking. Like that's the Jedi version of an ego. Some people are bad people. That's when the ego goes into a corrupt mindset. And even in comedy, I think it's become malicious, become a little bit too cocky. But I think there's a difference when Steve Martin, I think he had an ego, but like he had a funny ego. Like he didn't care if you laughed or not. He just stayed in his character, like ha ha ha. But that was part of his confidence, knowing that he did that a million times, knowing it was going to work. So I just think that should be the goal, is to develop all your jokes can like stand on them by themselves, and just you having your confidence in getting in the ignition of that joke, you can just write it.
Yeah.
Because that's not like the AAA is there. For example, I looked at it today for the first time in a month, and I actually wrote down stuff that I thought was kind of stale, but I might try it again. Like I told you one earlier on. Like I'm kind of angry that I can't say race jokes anymore. Like that's my whole act. Like it's not, but it's just a one-liner that I wrote. You know what? I think I can get away with that in a certain show, depending on how if my attitude was very likable to the audience, I can get away with stuff. And that's an important thing about stand-up is, I think I've had this advantage compared to a lot of comics is my likability on stage. Because I don't think I'm a brilliant writer. Like I do all this just for basics to get something out of me. Because some people can easily just write jokes and they're so good at it. I have to do this to sound like not a meathead. But like it's one. That's just tough. Sorry guys. So basically I wrote these down because I want to look at them again now and seeing if they can actually go back into this process of going back into the notebook to go into my post-COVID special. So I performed my first 2 shows this past Saturday and the Saturday before, and it was my first show since March 15th. And the part of me that has been staying in shape mentally and writing jokes and finding and even trying out stuff that isn't even that funny, but just trying stuff out, is what I felt helped me prepare for the shows. Not doing shows in a long time is what kind of killed me, not having a structure, because it's the timing of a long piece of something you haven't done in a while, and how should these jokes go with these jokes, or just whatnot, and that's just a learning curve or repetition, because that's when you actually start writing in your head, because it's almost like data on a computer. I write all these jokes and I input them all, and I remember all of them, but they're still all they're very fragmented. And you have to kind of do something to defrag everything, kind of just consolidate it to a point that you can go in one direction with everything. So that's kind of like now, what's naturally happening is that COVID file that I have, the post-COVID special, and my HBO special are starting to mesh organically. Because, for example, one of the jokes I wrote 3 weeks ago, once I know if a joke that I say about relationships works, it's a pretty broad genre. Then I can go into my other relationship stuff that I know has worked in the past that I still feel strongly about. Yeah. For example, there's a joke that I do about, and it's very crowd workish, but it's just based on observation. Is I can always usually tell how long people have been together, in an audience, because of their energy, just the distance. And my goal, my joke around it is it's not a bad thing. I think you earn distance in a relationship. 100%. I've done shows where people are making out in the middle of my set, and they met that night. Going at it, and it's because, dude, that's that love that they're having. That's not always going to be there. That's not in a bad way. And I asked people in the audience all the time, you've been together for more than 3 years. You guys still make out, in public? And they're like, no. You have to get wasted or something, to bring it back to day one, some slow music. So you can reminisce, that's the only way. So I did a few jokes like that to incorporate, this one of the new ones I did about relationships was well, this is the one that came from anger. Throughout this whole time, I thought a lot about Adam and Eve. Or mainly Adam. Adam had a choice. You can choose Eden or you can choose Eve. He chose Eve. What an idiot, dude. That's a little angry. That's why I didn't survive. But this is another one that I wrote, and this actually got the biggest laugh on Saturday, and the biggest we hate you. Yeah. Why the joke? I think this is going back to what you're saying. This is where I think I'm starting to find dabbling with not anywhere near towards mastery, but dabbling with that feeling of you can get them upset and they'll still laugh at you. Yeah. Was I saw a study that showed McDonald's if you eat at McDonald's, it's worse than, or if you eat at McDonald's, it's just as bad as cheating on your significant other. And right away, like half the audience is like, bullshit, like that's not true. Like unless you're like a heavy person that like really loves McDonald's. See, this is where people already start hating me on the show. But like if my girlfriend told me I just ate McDonald's, I'll be like, you should go for a jog. I got the biggest laugh of the show and the biggest like, we hate, like we want to throw something at you. But I said it, that's the thing. And that's now the experience is going back to a relationship joke that they're gonna like.
Yeah.
So now it's like finding beats, and it's beats. It's hurt them a little bit and then make them laugh a little bit. And that's not where the mastery is gonna start coming. But once I actually find the structure of a set, is trying to lose them with something like for example, the same Maxwell thing that I told you, like that was I actually tried to lose them on purpose because I know at the end it gets a punchline, but it gets some sort of positive feedback, but it's playing with those waves now. And I just think that comes with experience.
Yeah.
And it all comes down from ground zero, from getting back and writing. Like if you watch any interview with Jerry Seinfeld, he still writes jokes the exact same way from day one. He has a notebook that he keeps everything, and he keeps them like this. Like I actually throw this away, eventually it stays in my file, but Jerry Seinfeld, one of the most famous stand-up comics, still does the exact same thing he did from the first day he started writing jokes. Like he writes it down into one page and all the premises and dissects it and like what do I like about it and what are the positive things. And like he has his own style, but it comes from kind of the same techniques that you kind of develop. Last but not least is another checking in on friends with social distancing. One of the hardest parts for me has been checking in on friends. And why? Like demographically, who's getting sick the most? Like older people overweight. So when I'm a good friend and concerned, I call these people and they're getting upset at me, like, oh, let me guess, you're calling me because I'm fucking old. Like, you're also a little fat. I just wanted to see if you answered the phone, dude. Like, I'm glad you're alive, have a good day. Like, just destroy a compliment.
You were talking a little bit about, well, just now, not only beats in terms of energy, but we've also talked a little bit about beats in terms of rhythm. A lot of your set, it's not exactly one-liners, but I think especially someone, like Mitch Hedberg, obviously, like, gets
He's
into,
pure one-liner.
Yeah, and gets into like his vocality, or the way he talks is a little like about carrying the audience through a kind of garden patch.
Yeah.
But you were telling me a little bit about how you start to find a rhythm as you put jokes together.
Well, I'll tell you a funny part, like, my speech patterns are kind of like the same a lot, and it's in a funny thing, a lot of comics imitate me all the time, and they do it perfectly. And I can't even help but laugh, because like, man, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's because it's so good, like, this, and it comes into, I think it's just the way my mind functions, it comes in one beat at a time, boom, 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 and I know where I get like inspired. But I honestly think that you have to find that. One of the learning curves this past Saturday was it brought me back to theater, and I mentioned that Shakespeare, because people that know Shakespeare well and that can say Shakespeare well can be funny saying Shakespeare, because that's how good they know it and that's how good they speak. And I think the learning curve of you saying your own words is you can only say them it's just by repeating itself over and over again. Because I think a beat is universal. Like once your joke finds that beat, it's like a song. Like I don't really know music that well, but I definitely know it's hitting some sort of similar pattern of like a musical sound, because you're getting the person to react in a certain way, and then boom. It's cool. The whole process is like some people that are geniuses, man. Like they see the math behind it, and I can feel the math behind it. Like sometimes I'm kind of like reaching for it, but like I'm trusting that the process is there, because that's your subconscious is huge, man. Like we do all this, but it's how the rest of you, like your soul, like applies it.
Yeah.
Because if you do it based out of fear, like you can like stand up, but if everything you're doing, you're not enjoying it, everybody's gonna see a person not enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
So it's gotta come from like some sort of like harmony, I guess. Like a sublime kind of like even though another like Steve Martin line that like kind of gives you hope is, dude, like you have to give yourself room to fail.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, you know, I'm watching master classes, and this has nothing to do with stand-up or writing, but acting. Helen Mirren basically said it's about any like aspect of life is you want to get so good at technique that you can dance around it.
Yeah.
So you never sway away from the technique of the whole essence of what you're doing, but you're so good that you can play in it, like in however you want, but you're still following the technique. And I think that's kind of like inspiring as far like that should be how anything, like even stand up, like follow some sort of fundamentals, but like don't be afraid to play. That's what people want to see. Like you want to see you enjoy yourself. But
I think that's a beautiful place to conclude because our camera woman is giving me the 5-minute signal. But before we do, where can folks find you?
Go to my YouTube page. That's actually that was my main focus the last 3 months, was just trying to put content up. And the stuff that I should have been doing is one lesson that I learned of doing these writing like exercises was I should have been doing this while I was performing stand-up all the time. And they go hand in hand. So go to Gabe Dorado on YouTube or on Instagram is Cuban is Funny. And I think I might be performing in Atlantic City next week if I decide to go. But I'll keep you posted.
All right.
Cool, man.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you for having me. Oh, we'll do both. We'll do both. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Hey,